Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room, and we are going to continue our love for TACPs, especially our particular love for officers. So we decided to bring a TACP officer on to chat a little bit. Maybe this time Trent won't get chastised
Yeah, I was
by a
against it,
TACPO.
by the way. I was totally against this whole
He was.
endeavor.
It's his anxiety. I wish we had a level so I could watch how high his anxiety level is because he thinks he's going to get berated by yet another TACP officer.
Well, sir, we appreciate you joining us. We have Captain Ryan McCary. I'm sorry, not McCary, McCary. Really bad. Appreciate you joining us, sir.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I seriously, you guys have had some legends on here. I feel like I have no business being on here. So hopefully I can say something that makes sense and is helpful to somebody. So thanks for having me on.
No, it's hey, don't worry about it. We feel the same way because I tell you what, when I, on this thing with people like Tony Negrone and
Mike
TC,
Lampy.
Tommy
Yeah.
Case, Mike Lampy, JK Corn. I mean,
NORAD, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay, why are you talking to me? But okay, cool. We'll just keep it up.
Right. Yeah. I think we had in the last 2 months or something, we had almost everybody that was involved in Eagle Claw and the Sante raid in Vietnam. And I'm sitting here wow, I am a complete and total nobody. So don't worry. Don't worry. You're in good company,
It's
sir.
a good reminder to tell yourself every once in a while. So,
Memento mori,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we actually we've never met before. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tracking that you're a TACP officer, but I believe you're in the Guard. So you go into a little bit of your background and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, sure. So I joined TACP Officer right out of the gate. And so I graduated from UCF in 2015 and I went to TACP Officer Phase 2 before that. So I went my junior year. I did not get selected. I went back my senior year, got picked up, and then shortly after went through the TACP pipeline. First duty station was Fort Stewart, Georgia, and so 15th ASOS. So I was there at the time. They were doing a 4-year commitment out of your commissioning source. I think now it's 6 years once pipeline's complete, but at the time it was 4 years. So when I finished up my 4 years at Fort Stewart, I basically was trying to make the call, am I going to go to the schoolhouse? Because I really wanted to either try to do a schoolhouse instructor gig or go Guard. And either way, family-oriented choice. At the time, I was still married, but I'm married and I have 2 kids. And so we were just trying to figure out maybe a change of pace for a little bit and ended up going the Guard route. So I joined the 165th ASOS in Savannah, which it actually ended up working out because I ended up getting to take over kind of the 1-level program there, which for anyone who's not tracking, it's basically pre-schoolhouse or pre-pipeline. Guys come through the 1-level program, they pass an IFT, and then kind of get run through the ringer, run through an FTX, and then when you bless off on them, then they're able to go to the schoolhouse. So it was kind of cool to get the best of both worlds, get to go Guard, but still have kind of a little taste of the schoolhouse. And then after about a year of that, I crossed over to just an operational flight. And so I've been a flight commander since then. Whenever I joined the Guard, I joined part-time. And so traditional, and then I had to get a big boy job on the outside. So it was actually pretty tough. So anyone who tells you getting a job on the outside is easy because you have a clearance is full of it. I thought I had it all lined up with connections.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I thought I had it all lined up with connections and everything. And every single one of those fell through. And I was a week away from filing for unemployment. And then basically TACP, who worked for for L3 Harris, hooked me up with this FSR gig. And so I got this SOCOM FSR position, basically supporting 17th STS, 160th SOAR, and 75th Ranger Regiment at Hunter Army Airfield. And so any new Harris radios, waveforms, anything in that nature, I basically was the SME for how those things worked and integrating it into their exercises. So that was a pretty sweet gig to do that by day and still kind of get to Guard and JTAC. and sometimes align those things. So that was sweet. And then the last 2 years, I left that job and has been working for Mag Aerospace as an engineer. So that's me.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's me in a nutshell. Well, I heard a lot of the stuff. It was so funny that you just said, exactly what the Ivan Ruiz podcast dropped today, and Ivan had a quote out of that initial podcast that he talked. We broke it into 2 parts, but he was like, "Hey, when you're transitioning, you may think you have a job. You don't have a job until you have that first paycheck."
100%.
So it's pretty interesting to hear that you're like, "Man, I thought I had everything lined up."
I was like,
more of a lesson reinforced.
I was like this.
I'm going to take you.
Sorry, I was like this close to going to my commander and being like, "Can I have my job back? Can I come back to active duty, please?
Can I get on? Can I get some of them sweet? Can I get some of them sweet man days, please? Can I have a good quarter? So I want to take you all the way back to college, because you were in the ROTC program in college?
Yep. So I did 4 years of Air Force ROTC.
Okay, and then the first time as a junior, you didn't make it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we have people that ask us all the time, "Hey, how do you deal with failure? What keeps you motivated to come back?" So put me back in that space where, as a junior, you thought you had it figured out. You went, and unfortunately, you weren't selected. What feedback did you get after that first failure that helped you succeed the second time?
Right. So, it was definitely like a huge failure for me. Right, like that was like a pretty big pill to swallow. We like going back to my freshman year, kind of we had a guy who had been selected for Crow. He like went Crow phase 2. And so he kind of ran our grass and gorilla sessions, or kind of our PT. And so from a PT standpoint, I feel like I was like more than ready to go to phase 2. And so whenever I was at TACP Officer phase 2, like it sucked. It was definitely like a kick in the balls, and was like I kind of expected that. But what I wasn't prepared for was really like kind of the decision making that you were going to have to make whenever kind of like jibs are going off, and like like I'm just this little cadet, and like surrounded by cadets and other officer wannabes who like all want to do this.
Yeah.
And it was just like trial by fire. Like, oh wow, like I'm not just expected to come here and like perform PT wise. Like this is like we're going all night on this nav with jibs and shooting, and like I'm being told to make decisions based off of what's happening. And that was definitely something I wasn't expecting. And in my feedback, basically they said, "Hey, like you did really well physically, but we want to see you come back and grow as a leader. We want to see you come back and basically like not freeze whenever like you're being told to make decisions. Like just make a decision and then run with it, even if it's not 100% solution. Just make a decision." And so it was hard. I took a year basically before I went back again, and I'm glad I did, as opposed to just like going back right again. Like within that year, I got married. I took on some more responsibilities in my civilian job, and just in ROTC to try to get more leadership training, if you will. And whenever I went back, I feel like it just was so much smoother, and was able to like grow from that, instead of just like going back again and just kind of repeating mistakes. But it definitely like they were spot on. Like I did not crush it as a leader, and by no means was prepared for the schoolhouse after that first go around. So to get 2 looks at it, I see as a blessing, to then go into the schoolhouse with double the experience, and to be able to go in and actually like perform a little bit better. So
were there any books or any other things that you did to prepare in that year? I hear that you got more reps and that you just put yourself in more leadership positions, and that's awesome. Did you try to like read any self-help books, or did you seek out help from mentors? Because people ask us that question all the time. "Hey, I've got to be a better leader. I just don't know how." And we always default to, well, you need more reps. You got to go be a leader. Like that's one. And then 2, sometimes, we'll recommend a book. Is there anything that helped you in that time?
So I wouldn't say book wise. I dug into a lot. I feel like college wise, I was just swamped with what I was already being told to read. But as far as like knowledge of the career field. I feel like that was huge. Like whenever I went to TACP Officer phase 2 the first time, I was so like, all of us had no idea really what we were showing up to do. Like we had some idea that it was like, you know, related to like CAS and trying to be an officer, but like the career field like became what it was in 2008, I think. And so like, I mean, this is 2015, just a few years later, like there's not a lot of information on Google. And so to like actually go to the first phase 2, now I have contacts. Now I have real TACP officers and TACPs that I can reach out to, get mentoring from, and like actually learn from and ask questions that I have. Like, I feel like that was the most helpful to like, now I know why I even want to be here, because it's actually a cool job. So
everybody, if you can't tell, we had a little bit of a comm issue, which is a funny thing to be talking to our TACP officer Ryan, but we fixed it, because what happens when you can't get comm? Get comm, baby. That's it. That's the only thing you got to do. So, sir, we were talking about your journey through the pipeline, and I wanted to talk about the feedback piece. You got some feedback that you just weren't ready the first time, and your reflection, as we were talking earlier, you said, "Hey, it was actually good feedback." When you got to the actual TACP schoolhouse, when you got out of the ROTC world, and you saw what the course was, how grateful were you for that feedback? Like, do you think that if you'd have just made it through on the first time and the instructors were kind of like, yeah, we need people, check, he's good, do you think you would have been successful in your first attempt?
No, I definitely think I would have washed back, if not washed out.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I was able to make it through, no washbacks, which was a blessing. At the time, my wife had our first baby like a month before I left, and so I was like, dude, like I can't wash back.
That is not. Hey,
I cannot wash back. So.
I was at airborne school. I wasn't even in. I hadn't even cross trained back in. My daughter was 2.5 weeks old when I left for airborne school. I came back to a 5-week-old and a very pissed off spouse. It is a technique. It is not the recommended technique.
Yeah, I don't recommend it by any means.
Recommend that.
So when you're in the pipeline and you can't wash back, how did you, as an officer, and you've been given these like this guidance, right, by your phase 2 folks, like, hey, this is what kind of like the officer expectations are. Like, how long did it take you to figure out your priorities of work as a leader? How much time do you spend taking care of yourself, taking care of your team, and all these other things? And how did you figure that out to be successful and make your team as successful as possible as you guys went through that rigmarole?
Right. So like, I feel like the biggest thing I took out of my first selection was a lack of communication, right? Like as like an officer or really anyone in any of these career fields, like you got to be able to communicate. And that's the biggest thing I tried to take into the second selection. And then the schoolhouse was like, whatever the problem is, like everyone just needs to be on the same page, and then we'll press. And, like, I feel like it worked out all right. Obviously, like, there's plenty of games at the schoolhouse, and I got fired.
I don't know. Of course you did.
I got fired.
Oh,
it was what it was.
It was a game. You weren't a terrible officer.
I was. I was terrible, but no, it was. Nice. There was a lot of learning still to happen at the schoolhouse. So I by no means went into the schoolhouse like a product that was complete, but I feel like I had a good foundation from the phase 2 to be able to go in there and like start figuring out what this looked like. And I actually had a tech sergeant who shortly after put on master, who was my NCOIC of my team. And that helped a lot, just to be able to kind of lean on him for some of the hard choices and trying to like wrangle cats. Like, I think whenever I got to the schoolhouse, I was expecting like adults, if you will. And like when I got there, dude, I was just like, oh, I had no idea it was literally going to be like wrangling cats. And that's
man, I say this all the time, and I used to say it when I was an instructor at Kirtland, right? Like, we would have people come down to do like their element leader and their team leader upgrade, and they would get teams of students. And the one thing that I would sit these, like, pararescue men with, 5-6 years in, I would sit them down and I'd be like, listen, you think that you're going to be able to tell somebody, go set up a litter and do that in 5 minutes. And then you're going to show up over to where you pointed, and 2 people are going to have lost their shoes, and you're not going to know where. and somebody's gonna be on fire, and they're like, where's the patient, where's the litter, and they're like, no, we built a shelter, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, when you put them in that the four walls of a schoolhouse, grown men that are completely capable and deserving of respect do the dumbest things, and you're like, why? What happened?
Yep, for sure. No, yeah, that was eye opening. I was not expecting it. All my like visions of what the schoolhouse was going to be, I just like, it wasn't that, but it still was great learning environment. And like, it was for any potential TACP officers, like, use the time. Like, that is like an amazing time to like,
those are reps,
your leadership strategies, if you will, and have
communication.
Have them fail, get fired, and then like get more reps later, like whatever,
Facts.
So.
Yeah.
Well, and how do you deal with that like relationship of you're coming in and you have zero experience in the TACP world, same as the students. Granted, you have years on them for the most part, a lot of them. But like, how do you find that balance in your leadership style where like you're all on team together, y'all have like zero experience, but like you're in charge, but like you become friends, but you're not their friend. You have to be the one that they look to make decisions. I'm imagining the tech sergeant, the main master, helped you out a little bit with this as you walked through it. Like, what was the best piece of advice he gave you to help find that balance between you being a tyrant versus you being like, I'm just a team guy like the rest of y'all, and how to get things done?
Right. I think element leaders helped. Like, we had a few older guys on our team, so being able to lean on those guys as element leaders instead of like trying to like just manage everything myself, like try to like push some of the responsibilities down and let those dudes manage. Those dudes already had a little bit of respect due to their age, and then like just my mentality was like, I need to crush everything physically because you guys know how it all works. There's no respect for the officer that's in the back. And so like, I just tried to crush physical events and basically gain my respect in that manner. And like, still got to be a good leader, still got to make good decisions, but that at least gives you like a little bit of a platform to like start doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I don't know how many times we've said it. Like, if you're coming in as an officer or like a staff or a tech sergeant, like you got to be physically there to lead these people. Cause that's like everybody's first look, right? Is like, we did our PT test day one. And this Yahoo over here who's telling me what to do did like the minimum number of pull-ups. Right. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to listen to that joker, but
yeah, you don't have to be Dick Winters, but you also can't suck, Like,
yeah. Well, I have a awful start to the schoolhouse story. If I have a second,
send it. It's your platform, baby. Let's go.
This is great. So, I'm at the time they were calling it battle. It was kind of like after TACP prep, you go to this little hold. And then after like everyone's ready to start the schoolhouse together, your team starts. And so we're in battle for like 3 weeks, which if you don't know what it is, it's basically like 3 days. Like, you show up in the morning, you get a workout, you do a workout before lunch, and then you do a workout after lunch. And so coming from before SWIC and all that stuff existed, right? Like, my entire team had shin splints, like entire team post TACP prep, like my entire team was basically injured, and we've gone through the workouts. It's like the day before we're supposed to start team or start the actual schoolhouse. And so I go to the instructor and I'm like, hey, like, I know the workout says we're supposed to do this sprint workout, but like, any chance we can like roll out and like let our dudes like get some recovery?
No. All this time. The LT has a good idea and he thinks he's going to go to the instructors. Like, you know what? Let's see how this works out.
Yeah. So the guy I was talking to was actually pretty cool. He was cool about it, but there was a little TACP fairy hanging out in the background I didn't see, who like calls up the Eagle cadre, the TACP cadre, and is like, hey, we got this LT who's requesting non-intense workouts, right?
This guy's scurving. This guy thinks that they've made it.
Yep. So they call back, right? And they're like, we'll tell this LT he needs to present on day one of team a 2-week non-intense workout plan. If he wants to do non-intense workouts, then he needs to present that. So I show up day one of the schoolhouse. They're pissed. I show up and basically like, I'm like in the front of the formation in the pits, right? I have I was like, if I do a really crappy job on it, they're gonna be pissed. So I'm gonna
wait. So your idea here, when you know you were going in, was to just write something like in crayon and do a purposely bad job?
No. Opposite. I wanted to do it really clean, right? If I do it clean, maybe he'll rip it up and we can just move on. Like if it looks nice, maybe he'll just rip it.
Sure.
And so it's actually Krinsky. I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was just a beast of a man. And he definitely got spit on my face that morning. And so he rips it, right? He rips it, which I was like, all right,
perfect.
sick.
Yeah, cracking. You should have laminated it so he couldn't. Imagine coming up with like a really, really hard piece of paper to rip. So he would be more
Krinsky could rip it. Like he's a gorilla.
He could.
Yeah. And so he then makes me watch a sprint workout. I was trying to get my team out of a sprint workout, and then he like put me in the middle of a field and then made the team do sprints around me the whole morning. So
perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. What else besides that? Because we're gonna get asked, like, did you struggle throughout the pipeline? I'm imagining there was like at least one event where you had personal stress on your ability to crush it, and you also had all that other stress, baby stress, life stress, and also the team stress. Was there ever a culmination point of your stress in the pipeline where like you got no sleep and somehow you made it through it, and the next day you're like, I don't know how that happened?
Yep. So when we were at our first field event, your first field event is very like individual event tasks. Like you need to basically prove you can do all the tasks yourself. And then like the future field events, you are more team oriented, right? And so the first field event, we're doing all these go, no go events. And I did my land nav, so beat the odds with officer vibes on
Can't
the
spell loss
on the
without
land
LT, baby. Can't spell loss without LT. The LT.
Yeah, so
not everybody who wanders is lost, but the LT is lost. He's also hypothermic.
So I passed my land nav, right? But my vehicle nav. So I get in the vehicle, we start, and you got your instructor sitting right next to you, and it's kind of on you to tell the instructor where to drive. And this is at Camp Bullis, Texas. And there's lots of ghost roads out there. There's lots of things out there that aren't on the map. Yep. And so like, not to mention I have zero experience with like looking at a map and like knowing about how far I'm traveling, And so like
skill issue.
We start and like within like literally 1 minute, he's like, you failed. like I just drove right past my first turn within like a minute, and I'm checking the map. I'm like, let's go, baby. Like, and then just
this is going great.
Just flew past it. And so that was probably the most stressed and closest I was to washing back, was having to refire that the next day. And on top of like trying to manage the team, trying to like, because you're doing all these individual tasks, but you're still treated as a team out there in this field exercise. So it was a lot of stress for the first time, but to be able to go do it and like just slow down and actually pass the vehicle nav was a lot, because all that stress you were talking about, baby back home, like all that stuff, I'm like, bro, like I cannot mess this up.
Right.
No, that's 100%. I mean, those stresses are real, and that's why, whenever people say, "Hey, I want to come in open general, or I want to do something else, get my feet under me in the Air Force, and then cross train over," it's like, man,
why, dude? Do you know what life is going to do?
Yeah, a life, who you're going to meet. You may end up in a job that supervisor that doesn't necessarily understand or appreciate the fact that you're training to leave their career field. There's also not unlimited slots anymore. Like, so, man, it's a lot to gamble.
Well, I got in the vehicle nav, and at the very end of it, it's pretty funny. There's this super crusty tech sergeant, right? He's got a big thing of dip in his mouth. He doesn't want to be there.
Solid.
He's driving us, and like, dude, I'm like, dude, can you speed up? Like, I need you to like speed up a little bit. He's like, don't tell me what to do. I'm like, dude, I'm trying not to fail, man. Because there were people who busted their vehicle nav by like 10 seconds,
Oh, no.
Damn it, Lieutenant. Tell me what to do. I've got more time on target than you have on time on Earth, you POS.
So speaking of tech sergeants then, or NCOs in general, like when you came in, just how about kind of two-part question. When you came in the pipeline, but then also once you got to your unit, like how important were those NCOs to you, or were they not important at all? Like both are valid. I mean, because there were bad NCOs as well.
Well, I kind of had two completely different experiences when I got to. Well, thankfully, I had the good NCO at the schoolhouse that we talked about, so that was really helpful. Like, but when I got to Fort Stewart, the flight commander was deployed, and the NCO IC was on his way out medically. So, like, whenever I kind of stepped into that stand-in flight commander role, like, as like a second lieutenant, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I don't even have like the NCO to lean on because he's like doing medical crap all day. That was a joke. That was tough. And I think from the get-go saw like my need for that NCO, just to help, pass on whatever needed tasks or whatever needed to happen to like all these like seasoned dudes who know what they're doing, that was pretty tough to try to give leadership out of the gate and not have that NCO. And then a few months later, that guy's out, another guy steps into the seat, and it's like polar opposite, just like a guy who like has so much vested into the career field, who's a tech sergeant, but probably should be like a senior master sergeant, but he's just like getting it and like wanting to like really be out there with the dudes. And so like I was really able to lean on him and really get mentorship from him for myself. Like I kind of went into it thinking like he was going to just help me lead the dudes, but like he like really like mentored me through that. So that was super helpful just to
being around somebody like that is infectious. Like it's just kind of almost like, if you have somebody who's toxic, they really can infect the entire, really not the entire unit, maybe, as a staff or a tech, but those folks around them, if they are toxic or just down in the dumps, like it'll affect everybody. But if you get somebody who's squared away like that, like, man, they can carry that entire team or that entire section, whatever it is, a very, very long way. And it's impressive to see. It's just great to see that kind of greatness in folks.
100%.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring it up is because there are some, the Air Force is predominantly enlisted. However, there are people on the front lines that, if you want to talk about like 5th gen pilots, 4th gen pilots, they're all officers, right? So, and we are the Air Force, we are run by pilots, and they are on the pointy nose end of it, a lot of times. But your aspect war are predominantly enlisted, and that is a paradigm shift for a lot of people as they look at the Air Force and while they're in the Air Force. And so that's really the genesis of my question on the NCOs, just because I am in a spot now where we are predominantly officers in that pilot role. So it's interesting just to see the different dynamics between being at Nellis at the weapons school and then coming from the special tactics background for me. So, I don't know. Do you have anything on that? It's more of a comment
No,
than a.
He chiefed so hard right there. He was like,
man.
let me pivot. Let me put a message out.
In the Air Force.
Well, it's the classic joke, right? Like every other service, the officer's like, all right, man, follow me. And then in the Air Force, we're like, get his jet ready, put him in. We're like, go get him, sir. We'll be here when you get back if you do. But the only place that we don't do that is in special warfare, is in special tactics and on the rescue side, where you have, no kidding, an NCO that's meant to do NCO things. And people screw that up all the time. People never make that switch, that there's actually a ground element where NCOs are in tactical charge of the formation, and the officer is in command to make those decisions and accept risk.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like flipped from the rest of the Air Force, but it's definitely cool at least to see in special warfare, to see like their push to at least have the officers kind of align as best as they can with the enlisted guys, so that they kind of go into it like, hey, I'm not here to do your job, but I'm here to understand your job, and I'm here to like get some experience at it as well. But I'm here to basically lead, right? Whatever that looks like. And
you have an interesting take, I think, on based off of where you're at in terms of the ASOS and the guard, but at the same time having experience with Harris on the communication and radio side of the house. So I don't want to paint you into a corner here, but when we start talking about your kind of distributed command and control and a lot of things that, you know, the TACP community is getting after, specifically the TACP community, there is some aspect war parts to that, but specifically TACP community, like where do you on the ground floor see TACP going and where they can plug in the future fight?
Sure. Yeah. So, might get fired. I don't know what.
Yeah, well, that's my goal.
So,
my goal is to
whatever.
get you fired.
Whatever,
Send
man.
it. Right.
No. So it was actually really cool timing, right, to do the Harris thing right when we're like really starting to figure out how do we fit into this future fight, and a lot of the solution is based on these communication systems. And so where I see it is a lot of people like get upset when you're like, hey, well, we're not going to be exactly doing OP CAS or whatever. Like there's still a place to be a JTAC. And like, I think JTAC is an amazing foundation for TACP to have a guy who understands air to ground, a guy who is spun up on what that looks like to do CAS and to do all those JTAC duties. And it just makes them even better at what we're about to talk about, to where some people are calling it recce, some people are calling it C2, and like I think C2 is a better word for it. We, instead of basically trying to answer problems for the Army or for the Marines or for the Navy, the Air Force came to TACP and was like, hey, we're cutting you guys by 50% because you don't solve any of our problems. And we were like, okay. Maybe we should start solving your problems.
Right. Request for forces is not a problem. Like that is not like, you know, an Army RFF to TACP for JTACs is not a problem. The Air Force is like, that's not a problem. You know what a problem is contested, denied environments in an LPI, LPD environment. Like that's what a problem is. Like you need to think about that problem.
Yeah. And there's a place to JTAC and do CAS, but that doesn't happen until like day 30 plus of a war, right? Like that's how you got to think of it, as like that's phase whatever of a war.
2.
And like, yeah. And
phase 2 and 3.
And Air Force is like, what are you providing in 0, 1 and 1? And, cause that's where they're putting their money, right? With the 5th gen fighters and with everything else. And so, where I see TACP fitting into that is answering, problems for the CFAC. So as opposed to like trying to answer problems for these different ground commanders of different services, it's okay, what does the CFAC need? What does the Air Force need in order to be successful while they're trying to accomplish their tasks? And here's how TACP can assist you with that. It's stuff we've already been doing. It's, hey, let me extend your long range communications and let me actually provide you targeting data to that thing you're trying to hit, right? So there's still an aspect of precision strike to it. But kind of this sitting on an OP and like controlling CAS isn't what it's going to look like. And you don't want it to look like that. Otherwise you're going to die, right? Like, cause we're talking about targets that are very contested, very deep. And in order to get there, we got to kind of get back to all those things we talked about in the schoolhouse and did a little bit, like field skills and all that stuff. So it's still applicable, but there's also some shortfalls that come with that as far as like recce and like that, like you're not out there as just like some like recce team, but at the same time, you are expected to do some of those skills if you're going to extend the C2 and you're going to be able to tell them what's there. Like that's going to inherently come with some recce skills. So how are you going to get better at that? Well, let's send our dudes to RSLIC. Let's send our dudes to these courses so they can like actually get better at these tasks. So then we can deliver the Air Force a good package or a good product.
Okay, I'm gonna
So-
cut that, and we're gonna post that straight to the CSAF
As soon
And,
as we
and-
possibly can. Yeah. No, she's
Yeah.
a big fan. Yeah. Listen, they're big fans of the kill chain. You just you expertly explained exactly what the kill chain is supposed to do, right? It's more like the kill web. That's how you sound even smarter, right? Like a whole bunch of interconnected things that are feeding targeting data in real time and it can actually leverage like moving target packages. Like that's what you just explained. So okay, we'll send that along and then we'll just need your signature box there.
Yep, no biggie
Sweet.
deal.
Sounds good.
I am glad though that you mentioned the JTAC thing, because we've been doing JTAC whatever stuff for many years now, and it was earned aspect war lots of money and funding and stuff like that and recognition for the last 20 years. But being a JTAC is so much more than just nominating targets, sending a 9-line and dropping bombs. Like it is so much more than that. And I think it lends those skills and that mindset also lends its hand very, very well to whatever this thing that we're calling it, whether it's distributed C2 or like I said, whatever. Like there's a bunch of names. There's no doctrinal names yet and they haven't decided on a name yet, but that is important. And the 5th gen warfighter wants it. They recognize it and they want it. So we got to continue to work towards it, and we got to get away from this stovepipe of JTACs only drop bombs, because that is not the case.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Is it's something they want, but it hasn't even been bought yet. So like we're testing it, we're doing it in exercises. So for anyone who's still thinking about going to the pipeline or is in the pipeline, like this is all still very fresh, and like we're still trying to like have the Air Force agree and basically have the Air Force come down and say, this is what TACP does now, which I think is hopefully happening soon, but we'll see what happens.
Well, it's a big ship, right? And it takes a lot to turn a big ship like that, but you at least see the reflections on the ground. You at least see that there's a lot more people that are saying these things. 5 years ago, people were saying these things and you just get laughed out of the team room. You'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. In what environment? As of today, we're sending troops into Taiwan. As of today, we're talking about Indo-Pacific stuff. That's going to become a really, really big deal. And we're going to have to solve some really hard problems. One of the other
something. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Something I've seen as well, which has been super helpful from like a ASOS perspective, is like it's cool to see leaders actually allowing us to dive into this stuff, because I've seen leaders in the past who basically like, no, like we're JTACs. They care so much about the currency being met. They care so much about like my numbers look bad if you're not all green all the time. But it's like, you got to sacrifice like a little bit to be able to go press into some of these new mission sets. And it's been cool to see the TACP leaders basically, hey, go figure it out. Like, go do it. Like, we'll spend resources to get you to this exercise so you can go figure it out. And I just think that's a shift, because TACP has done a good job in the last few years of shooting itself in the foot, at least since I've been in there. And so to like start to see this shift to where it's like, no, we're not going to screw ourselves. Like, we're actually going to try to press with this mission set has been cool.
For sure. Yeah. I'll tell you that, like, that's a huge problem set that you guys are tackling. And, like I just said, you can see that you're moving towards it. Another huge problem that I wanted to talk about, and I think this is going to be, pretty controversial. Your hair has the ability to be really good, but it just needs a little bit of product. Have you ever heard of Out of Regs pomade? Because I got to be honest with you, sir. This beach bum spray that I just got, like the beach bum, my hair is always good, so I'm not really the focus group here. Like, but your hair, I think we could have a really good like before and after, because I think the difference is going to be straight amazing. Because your hair right now, it's just a little bit of sea salt on there, a little damp, little through. If you really want to get sporty, maybe you want some pomade. Maybe your hair is way too long, and you want to make sure that you're in regs, right? Well, you use Out of Regs. I prefer the pipe hitter. No big deal. There's a sweet discount code. If you go to Out of Regs pomade, that's Out of Regs with an S. You can go on there and use the code one's ready at checkout. Get yourself a sweet deal. You'll get a sticker, little sea salt spray, little pipe hitter. I don't know how you feel about it, because I think once your hair looks as good as I think it's going to look, you're going to have to go back to A&S and be a crow. Now?
They're already trying to take the recce job, all right, over on their side. Now, if they take the hair thing too, like, what does SOF even exist for after that? Like, just shut AFSOC down. That TACP's got it on the ACC side.
The second that you throw the Out of Regs pomade in your hair, you're immediately a soft TACP. I don't know if you're aware of how to like make that change, but you
I'm gonna show up to guard drill here in 2 weeks, and it's gonna be like heads are gonna be turning.
Yeah. You're gonna hear it. Normally, we like say thank you by sending a T-shirt. I'm gonna send you some pipe hitter. I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna get you the sea salt spray. We're gonna get you, glossed up, man. Maybe
I owe you a photo, so send it. I owe you a photo.
Fantastic.
Can only imagine what that photo is going to be like.
Well, first of all, it's going to be framed. So that's the first thing that photo is going to be. And then the second thing it's going to be is on my wall. So in your face. Go check out Out of Regs pomade. While you're at it, go over to our friends at Drink Hoist and check them out too. So every morning I've gotten in the habit of throwing a Hoist in my kind of pre-workout mixed drink that I have. So it helps me get hydrated for the entire day. If you're sleeping like crap, you know why? It's probably because you're dehydrated. If you, I don't know, have a headache during the day, you know why? It's probably because you're dehydrated. You can literally fix every problem you have with hydration, and Hoist is one of our partners, been there since the very beginning. So go over to drinkhoist.com, check them out, use our code. You can either get the premix. I'm a big fan. They have watermelon in the packets now. I'm a packet guy. They've got watermelon packets. Fire. I thought dragon fruit was my overtime, top of the line favorite. Nope. It's watermelon. Watermelon and fruit punch. There it is. So drinkhoist.com, use our code one's ready at checkout. It's awesome. So in your face. And then
to my supervisor, your headache's not because you're dehydrated, it's because you're my supervisor. So it's the only person that won't help.
That's right, wink.
That's right. Yeah, take that, wink. You POS. But on a serious note, Sarah, like I did want to ask you have a great presence. Like I told Peaches, if he didn't introduce you as the man that brings faith and firepower to the game, he missed an opportunity. So
Which I did.
Which you did.
I missed that opportunity.
You did. You missed it. Well, it's because it's corny, and I'm totally willing to be corny. But we get questions all the time, like, hey, the team room is supposed to be this, free fire environment where all this is. And, I'm very solid in my faith. How do I make those two things happen? You are very open about your faith, and you talk about it all the time. And it's one of the great things about our career fields is that it takes all kinds, right? I don't want to use the D word, but we do have a very diverse set of dudes, from guys that are completely not religious at all. And, kind of those knuckle dragging heathens, all the way to, sorry, Trent. All the way to folks like you that are really open about your faith. How do you work those two things together?
Right. So, it was a learning experience for sure. Like, Mil-Spec Believer and kind of everything that turned into that.
You admin revealed yourself.
Everything that turned into that came out of my 4 years at Fort Stewart. So my entire time at Fort Stewart, I wasn't open about my faith. I wasn't open at all about any of that stuff. And I kind of like had work me and like home me, if that makes sense. And it wasn't healthy. And like, that's not really a good look. Like if you're going to have relationships with the dudes, because like anyone in one of these career fields, like whether you're officer, enlisted, doesn't really matter. Like you guys are going to like bond, and in order to like have a solid relationship, you need to like, be honest about yourself and stuff. And so I feel like I kind of failed to do that at Fort Stewart. And so kind of when I left Fort Stewart and was going to the Air National Guard, I was like, dude, I've totally dropped the ball at like actually incorporating this stuff. Cause like being a Christian and like all that is a huge part of my life. And so to not incorporate it was just not really being honest. And so when I went to the Guard, I really tried to shift that and flip a switch to like, just be who you are, like it, whatever, like, and then they'll accept you or they won't, like whatever. And that's kind of where the podcast and the page for Mil-Spec Believer kind of came from, was just to kind of do it. Right. And someone will shut me up or someone will fire me if they want to fire me. But like, I've found a lot of freedom by not being a chaplain. Like, I feel like chaplains are kind of held to this like pretty handcuffed standard of what they're allowed to do. And so like in the team room, like dudes are the dudes, and like, there are certain lines you don't cross, but at like the same time you can like talk freely. So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I always thought there was some overlap with the way that our folks talk about the community and the team room and each other, and having like religious undertones to everything. I always think about like faith and hope, right? Like outside of like religious connotations, like I think you can take a lot of that stuff you learn on the religious side and apply it to leadership, right? Like, what's the difference between faith and hope? Or, like, hope you have no relationship. Faith is what we all have in each other as teammates, because you have that relationship with everybody, and you know each other and you know their capabilities. And so I think if you don't believe in anything, or if you don't have that kind of experience, and I think that's what a lot of guys find in the team room, is kind of that kind of community, and a lot of those, I don't know, it always sounds religious to me, like the way we talk, like we're in a cult, you know, like we're like, oh, 100% not a co, and
100%.
I believe in my brother, and I know that they're going to come for me, and all this other stuff. So I think there's a lot of, you know, regardless of whatever religion or non-religion that you subscribe to, that there's a lot of overlap there, but there's also a lot of stuff that you can learn from either side that applies to both sides of that coin.
100%.
Yeah, that was more of a statement. That wasn't really a question.
See? See, it just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Chief in training.
Oh,
No. Dude, my hand is, I don't do the, like, I can't get my finger, I can't be a chief.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work that way. So what, now that you're working for all those other folks, like, what have you learned working with, like, I'm curious, because, like, I worked for the 160th a couple times back in the day when I still did stuff. How interesting is it working for those folks on that side of the fence, and you're civilian to boot? And then what are the lessons that you can take from those folks? Because, like, I've talked about it before, the 160th is like my favorite organization within the military. No offense to every other organization I've worked for, but what are the lessons that you can learn from them and take back to your unit for everything that you're doing?
It's been fun. It was fun. I really enjoyed that time working with those guys, and it was kind of cool to, like, have so many different customers at Hunter Army Airfield, to kind of float to those different guys and kind of get to peek behind the curtain at a lot of different units. But as far as, like, what I take away from that, like, those guys are getting after it. Like, whether I was at the 17th, 160th, or 75th, like, everyone was getting after it, but, like, everyone had their specialty, you know, like, everyone had, like, what they were trying to accomplish. And I think sometimes we can try to do everything. I think sometimes we can, especially, like, in TACP, like, I mean, we were joking about the recce stuff, but like, we try to do too much instead of, like, fitting into our lane, or dudes get into Air Force Special Warfare, like, wanting to be, like, a door kicker or whatever. And it's like, that's not why you're joining. Like, that's not the specialty.
Go be a ranger. Every single time we get that question, like, hey, I want to kick doors in and go house to house. Be an 11 Bravo. Go to the infantry.
Like,
go to the Marines.
So I was able to see those guys, like, and they're really good at that. Like, they're really awesome.
Really good at that.
That's what they do. But it's that's not, like, the 17th STS guys assist with that, but that's not their job on the mission either, to, like, be the guys doing that, right? They have their tasks, and sometimes it's going to align for them to do some of those things, and sometimes it's not. So I think it was just helpful to kind of peek outside of TACP, peek into some of these different career fields, and be like, hey, TACP has a place doing something, but it's not always going to align with whoever you're supporting.
Right.
So.
And I actually remembered the question that I wanted to ask earlier when we got sidetracked. I started talking about religion and lost my brain. Sorry. So, like, as TACP moves forward, and I know I'm jumping back, folks, as TACP moves forward into this more reconnaissance C2 denied environment situation, I know that on the AFSOC side, my career field's trying to do a lot of the same stuff. And I hear it all the time. People are like, well, why are they doing that when we're doing that on the ACC versus AFSOC side? Like, to me, it's only goodness, right? And I'm not afraid of competition. I think it's good. And you guys have different customers and maybe different phases of war, and there's never enough people. And the way I look at it is, I don't know how many TACPs that I've talked to over the years during GWAT that got pulled into an ODA because they were a JTAC, and there just weren't enough combat controller JTACs or soft specific JTACs to complete the mission. So to me, it's always a lot of goodness, but, like, how do you deal with that, a little bit of that pushback and overcome that? And how do we help folks see that greater capability is good for everybody, you know, across the board?
Yeah, 100%. So, one, there's plenty of missions to go around. I think when you look at kind of the near peer fight, like, we're not talking about, like, a small city that we're, like, having to, like, fight for a deployment, right? Like, we're talking about, like, a large scale fight. And if there's a large scale fight, like, SOCOM is going to have, or AFSOC is going to have their targets or recce missions that I'm sure SR is going to crush, right? But then like maybe ACC is going to have their things that they're trying to accomplish, and they can kind of join, but they're two different customers, like you said, and there's plenty of work to go around. Like there's a plethora of targets that are going to need to be seen, because we're talking about, okay, well, we can't just push a drone up there. We can't just push a drone there to be able to see what we need to see, right? It's like, okay, well, who is going to go look at that? Well, we have 10 SR guys and we got thousands of TACPs. So that's, no.
None of the SR guys are current. They haven't been able to get through their training yet.
We throw the TACP guys out there first to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
How dare you?
No, but hopefully that answers your question and makes sense. So we're just trying to encourage the dudes, just like there's going to be work, like like you said, it only makes us better. And these tasks that we're learning, like to try to get better at with Recce and with all these other stuff, like it fits into everything. Like it's not just applying to this mission set. So
Yeah, absolutely. So you already outed yourself. So you have an Instagram page and a podcast. Why don't you go ahead and plug those real quick?
Sure. Yeah. So I already told you why I started it, but I started the Mil-Spec Believer Instagram page, and I just feel like that's where everyone's at. Like that's just where a lot of people are at. And
yeah.
I didn't intend for it to become a meme page, but once you join, once you join Instagram, like and you follow any of these guys, it's the new climate survey, in my opinion.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
Like it's pretty fun. It's a laugh, but there's also some truth to a lot of it, and it's pretty enjoyable to participate, especially when I have a full-time job that's not TACP, to be able to like stay connected to all that stuff, to post memes and make fun of myself, make fun of other career fields. It's just a good time. So I like doing that. I try to keep up with the podcast and encourage fellow Christians who are in the military. Actually, a lot of like TACP, CCT, PJ wannabes follow, and so try to encourage those guys when I can, just to keep pressing. But it's tough to podcast all the time, as I'm sure you guys know. Like, I feel like I have 3 full-time jobs right now, and I'm just like,
don't let us start complaining. Time? We'll just start complaining.
Yeah, don't start it. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So
you think this is the only podcast that we're recording today? Look at you. Aren't you beautiful? We got six more hours of content this weekend. Playboy.
Yeah, I feel like I start every episode with, sorry I haven't posted in a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, thanks for letting me say that. If anyone's interested in following Mil-Spec Believer podcast or page, that's a good time. So
yeah, definitely. And then so we end each episode with asking folks what piece of advice, whether it's 1 piece, 2 piece, whatever kind of advice that you would give to somebody, whether it's, the kind of people that want to come in and be TACP, CCT, SR, PJ kind of thing, or guys that are already on team. So shooter's choice on your end. What kind of advice would you give to folks?
Sure. So I'll just pass on what's been passed on to me. I feel like I've had really great tactical leaders as I've been trying to develop as a TACP officer. So really thankful for those guys. But the biggest thing that I feel like that's been hammered to me is just like, as an officer or even just a team leader, if you're like an NCO or whatever, is just to like be with the dudes, and to like the only way you can actually do your job as a leader is to understand what they need. And the only way you're going to understand what they need is if you have done it yourself and you've been a part of what they're doing. And just, I see it too often where guys lose focus on what the actual mission is, or lose focus on what the guys need. And then all of a sudden it becomes, what's your own agenda and what are you trying to accomplish, instead of what the dudes at the tactical level need. And so like, as like a leader, like get that tactical time, like as best as you can, so you understand what those guys need. And then like, keep doing it, like keep trying. Like at some point, like, yeah, you are going to have more responsibilities. You are going to have more paperwork. You are going to have to be the guy who plans the exercise. But I've seen so many people do that and they're like, all right, well, I planned it, so now I'm done. And it's like, dude, just go. Like, that's not your responsibility now. like you pass it off, but like still go and like still learn and still train and get time with the dudes. And like, like I'm a captain. I hope that even as like I become a major and stuff, like our lieutenant colonel, who's our squadron commander, is still a JTAC, still maintains his currency. Like I want to do the same, and I want to still be with the dudes, even as like I never want to graduate team time. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, because you never get it back. You just never get it back. So
a lot of pain behind those eyes, Trent.
Yeah,
a lot of pain behind those eyes.
A lot of sadness over here.
A lot of sadness.
Yeah, there is. But sir, really appreciate you joining us. Been following your page for a while now. It's hilarious. So keep up the good work on that end, at least on the meme page and the podcast front. And definitely thanks for doing what you do for the E-Man out there, because it helps. And then again, you know, in the private sector, you're still helping. That's what's so cool about it, is that you're helping from 3 different fronts, helping the cause. So we really appreciate it. For everybody else that's out there, please like, subscribe, leave us a review, hit the little bell, all those kind of good things. But we haven't had a review in a while, so leave us a good one and make sure it's funny. Please. I'm asking. Just please.
It's free. Costs nothing.
Yeah,
just smash that subscribe button. Just smash it.
All right, we're out here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. See ya.